Hey everyone! If you enjoyed this video, the full version is available on Patreon. I'll be uploading all my content there going forward. It's currently free, but in the future I'll add a small monthly fee to support the channel. Comment or message me what price feels fair for you. Let's make it comfortable for both sides.
Chapter 1. A strange scream came over the sea, only to see a flash of green light, a pervert wearing a blue tight-fitting coat, a red cloak behind him, and red underwear. No, it was Superman, and he was falling from the sky. Help! Plop down, the huge sound of falling water made the ships sailing on the sea noisy. A sturdy man who was dozing, his nose was still bubbling outward, and a dog's head hat on his head, suddenly woke up from sleep. Wow, what's going on? Ah, my senbei. The boat that swayed because of the influence of the perverted object that fell into the water made all the man's favorite food fall to the ground and be trampled to the ground. My senbei. The robust man held his head, his eyes widened, and he was heartbroken to see the senbei falling to the ground. Lieutenant General Garp, Lieutenant General Garp, it's not good, it's not good. Just now there was a strange guy who fell from the sky and fell into the sea. The panicked naval soldier came to report to Garp, but Garp's attraction was completely attracted by the senbei that had become dirty on the ground, and an old tear was about to flow. The senbei I finally stole from the safe of that miser in the warring states. It's abominable, I can't eat the senbei, I'm going to die. A group of naval soldiers around them looked subtly left and right, as if they had just heard the secrets of the high-ranking naval officials. Damn, that bastard did it. Finally recovering from the sadness of losing senbei, Garp angrily pulled the two long ears next to his dog's head hat. He ran to the side of the ship in grief, and saw a pervert wearing a blue tights, whose whole body was perfectly outlined, but there was an extremely bright red panty wearing a pervert on the outside, floating on the sea. Damn, how did this guy look like this? Perverted. A group of wide-eyed Navy soldiers rubbed their eyes with Garp, and this guy floating on the sea was too hot-eyed to dress. Because the clothes are soaked in the sea, the clothes become a little looming, making the man floating on the sea seem to be more sexy. Damn, this guy is actually better than I look. It's just that Vice Admiral Garp's unwilling tone made the surrounding naval soldiers a little unbearable to look at it directly, and they thought for a moment if it was such tight clothes on Vice Admiral Garp's ship, wearing red underwear on the outside. A violent mixture of physiological and psychological reactions is about to gush out of their mouths. What are you still stunned for? If you don't catch people quickly, scatter all the old man's fairy shells. This guy won't let him die so easily before I finish compensating. After Garp ordered down, soon the Navy soldiers jumped into the sea and swam to the perfect body that made them all feel a little ashamed of themselves, could not look directly, and could only turn their heads. Quick, get him up. A rope was thrown from the ship, and the soldiers quickly tied the rope to the man's body, and the soldiers on the warship pulled them all to the ship with a force. Hey, boy! Wake up! Garp gently patted the man's face, but was gently pushed away by one of his hands. Knock knock! Garp stepped on the deck of the warship with an extremely heavy footprint, leaving behind a terrifying big footboard. It wasn't until he retreated to the side of the ship that Garp finally stopped his retreat, and then looked at Silway lying in front of him in disbelief. This kid is so big? No, what a terrifying strength! Just a gentle push at any time, let himself back such a distance, and let himself have an irresistible feeling, what kind of person he picked up on the boat. How did such a man with terrifying strength and strange power fall from the sky? The expression on Garp's face became more and more solemn. Could this guy not be a hidden supermaster? However, at this moment, the man lying on the deck suddenly stretched out his hands and aimed at the sky, with an extremely lewd expression on his face. Come on, Fiora, don't be shy, let me touch your ass, I just want to see if you can give birth to a healthy big fat boy. Garp is full of black lines, looking at the man with clothes tightly attached to his body, his heart once again deepened his impression of him, Yes, so obscene, and wearing such a set of obscene clothes, this guy is just a simple pervert. Well, Fiora, Fiora. Suddenly, Clark suddenly woke up, opened his eyes, jumped up, looked at the Navy soldiers in white coats and blue pants who were watching around, and shook his head. I must be dreaming. My Fiora is gone. Clark squeezed his thigh fiercely, and snot and tears flowed painfully. It's over, it's all over. Originally crossed into Superman, I felt that I could already work hard to reach the peak of my life, but I didn't expect Fiora to be so strong. After killing the last general Zed and his other men, he left only the beautiful and sexy Fiora. I thought that this woman would obediently obey herself and contribute to the reproduction of the Kryptonians with herself, but I didn't expect that this woman would directly drive the spaceship that was originally used to deal with Zed and take herself to jump from Earth to the exiled no man's land. He was also kicked out of the singularity jump of the leaping space by her because he sneaked a handful of her ass. It's over, I'm really the last person left. Looking at Clark's heartbroken look of crying, Garp always felt that instead of being touched, he wanted to laugh out loud. Chapter 2. Clark is bitter, what a bitterness can't be said. I thought that if I became Superman, I would have great power, unrivaled handsome appearance, and fans in all corners of the world. However, after he continues to strengthen his power and grow into a real hipster on Earth faster and stronger than Clark in the original book, Clark painfully discovers something terrible for him. He can't find a girlfriend at all. It's not that Clark isn't handsome, or that he's not charismatic, because great power makes people scared. On the contrary, he has always attracted the attention of thousands of girls with his handsome appearance and temperament. However, there was one thing that kept reminding him in Clark's mind that he would never be able to find an ordinary Earth woman as a girlfriend. Moreover, in the future, he may be completely insulated from these beautiful Earth beauties. Because on the occasion of his restless adolescence, Clark, who could not bear the heat and loneliness, quietly entered the largest .avi website in the United States, completing the first transformation from adolescence to adulthood. The superhuman body and staying power made Clark very satisfied, but looking at the computer screen that he accidentally burst, and the new transparent skylight on the roof, Clark fell silent. It's overworked, like this, how can he go to an ordinary Earth woman as a girlfriend, and he is not a cruel king who has to execute a queen every day in fairy tales. Silently in tears, Clark began to look for superheroes on Earth who could withstand the power of his body, and wanted to see if he could make them his girlfriends. However, the only Wonder Woman who makes him feel very appetizing and absolutely capable of withstanding her own power says that she does not feel anything about herself. Clark ate a closed door, and had to wait silently alone, calculating. Then, he took the initiative to turn on his ship's call for help, attracting Zed and his men, but the result still surprised him. Zed, the only beautiful female adjutant, was so fierce that she would rather be exiled to death alone, and also kicked herself out of the jumping singularity and sent herself to this strange world. What to do? Clark is so desperate, he just wants a girlfriend. Why is the world full of malice towards him? Thief God, please, give me a girlfriend who can endure me. Young man, why are you so sad? Garp looked at Clark's unlovable look, calculated his heart, walked to Clark's side kindly, and gently patted him on the shoulder. You won't understand the distress of a man who has been single for many years and will probably continue to be single. Knowing that his girlfriend could not withstand such a strength, Clark said that he would not start exercising his ability regularly so early. How come, if a strong person like you wants to find a suitable girlfriend, shouldn't there be a lot of women who take the initiative to dedicate themselves? If you have any difficulties, just say so, maybe I can help you. Garp looked at Clark with golden eyes. He had an urge to put Clark into the Navy. Such a person, if he can join the Navy, it is definitely a blessing for the Navy. As long as the right medicine helps him solve the problem, he will have a good impression of the Navy. Clark glanced gloomily at the old man in front of him, and then, under his gaze, extended his little finger and gently poked at the floor. On the warship made of steel, there was not even a single sound, and a thumb-sized hole appeared on the deck of this thick naval warship made with the latest technology. Garp's eyes instantly shrank sharply. How is this possible? This is a particularly strong deck built with various problems in mind. Even if it is continuously hit head-on by bombs, it is difficult to cause huge damage to this deck. And the man in front of him is just a little finger, there is no sign of using strength, and he actually poked a hole directly in it. And that wasn't all, Clark continued to stand up in front of Garp and spit softly into the deck at his feet. Sting! An extremely shrill voice sounded on the naval warship, and Garp turned his head in horror, looked at the place where Clark spit out a hole, and gasped. He saw something, he saw the huge warship, and it was directly pierced by Clark from the deck above, layer by layer, directly to the bottom of the ship, and at the bottom, a hole was punched out. Clark looked sadly at Garp, who was stunned in front of him, and said to him, "You see, every part of my body has a degree of hardness comparable to this finger, the rate of fire of the water I spit out can easily break through this ship. What do you think? What do I need to do to find a suitable girlfriend?" Garp fell silent, and after thinking for a while, patted Clark on the shoulder. "That's sorry, I can't do anything about this matter, you better continue to work hard, I believe you will be able to find a girlfriend as soon as possible." Garp quickly disappeared from Clark's front with a puff of smoke, asking him to help such a person find a girlfriend. Wouldn't it be for him to harm people? There is that woman who can withstand such a man. I am afraid that the whole person will be beaten through. Chapter 3. The melancholic poor Superman Clark, deeply troubled by the problem of his girlfriend, has been doing nothing on Garp's warship. Clark, think about it, men should aim in all directions, should not only focus on the love of children. Have you seen this vast sea? Vast, don't you think? Garp, who originally wanted to try to persuade Clark to pursue his ambitions in another direction, was choked after saying 2 words. "What, you don't feel vast in the face of such a wide sea?" "Ah, it feels like it only takes one breath to fly around the planet several times." Although Garp didn't understand what Clark meant, he still thought he was so good. Blah blah. Who are you deceiving you? The old man has seen many people in his life, and he has only seen one person reach the end of the world, and has spent countless years of hard work, struggle, and fighting. Clark glanced at Garp excitedly. Isn't flying around the Earth several times in a breath of time standard equipment for Superman? He remembered that when he raced with a strange kid named the Flash he had seen before, he almost broke the speed of light and directly let time travel against the current. He is not bragging, unless the equator of this planet is several times larger than that of Earth, otherwise, he can now achieve the speed of light after accelerating with full force. Hey, forget it, you don't understand what I told you, you just need to know that on this sea, there are countless people who are fighting for fame, wealth, and power. It would be a waste of your talent for you to have such an ability and only focus all your eyes on your children's love. Garp looked embarrassed, and then pointed to himself. Look at me, because of the struggle, so now I am an honorable vice admiral, these are my subordinates. How is it? Do you feel very powerful? Are you interested in becoming a navy? Clark pulled his eyelids, lacking interest. I'm not interested, I just want to find a girlfriend now, I'm the last Kryptonian, I don't want to die before I haven't been in a relationship. Hearing Clark talk about such a heavy topic, Garp thought that the Kryptonians he was talking about were a hidden family hiding somewhere, but they encountered population problems and only had the last heir left. Garp gritted his teeth, looking at Clark's strong appearance. The strange family of Kryptonians must also be very powerful. If such a family can be won into the navy, it may also become a backbone of the navy in the future. I can't bear to let the child set and not look for a wolf. Garp made up his mind in his heart. Well, Clark, I can introduce you to a lot of great girls, and you can pursue them yourself. However, you must promise me to join my naval forces, How? Clark's eyes instantly bloomed with hope, and for a moment, Garp didn't see Clark's movements clearly at all, and was hugged tightly by Clark with a bear hug. Old man Garp, you are such a good man. Woohoo! After finally breaking free from Clark's bear embrace, Garp glanced at Clark's current appearance and gasped heavily. I warn you in advance, Clark boy, you can't be so excited in the future. Moreover, the girl I introduced to you, you must be gentle, treat her well, be careful, absolutely not be able to use so hard, got it? Garp helped himself to the old waist that was almost broken by Clark, who was excitedly unable to control himself, and a trace of guilt flashed in his heart. Garp rubbed his waist and made a series of clicking sounds, only then corrected his almost misplaced bones. Well, since you have now agreed to join the Navy, you are also a Navy soldier under me, let's go change into Navy clothes first. No, I refuse, these clothes are too ugly to reflect my figure at all. I'll tell you old man Garp, the girl you introduced to me will easily fall when she sees my perfect body. Clark waved a few sexy poses, and then triumphantly crossed his hands on his waist. Garp looked at Clark's red panties worn on the outside of his body, and suddenly regretted recruiting this guy into the Navy. This kind of Navy wants to make the image of the Navy in front of the whole world become embarrassing. Garp really wanted to pull off the red panties that this guy was wearing backwards and put them on his head to let him know how perverted these panties were on the outside. I think you'd better wear this thing under your pants, okay? Don't you think it's too perverted to do this? In the face of Garp's roar, Clark's eyes instantly became sad again. It was 10 years ago today, and when I first saw the last legacy left to me by my biological parents, it was this one of the clothes that was tailor-made for me. Clark's voice had a hint of sadness, and the melancholy look made the surrounding naval soldiers can't help but sympathize with him. It turns out that this is the last thing left by people's parents, so even if you wear red underwear outside, it may just be remembering your family. Thinking about it this way, these red panties don't look changing at all, but are full of slow love. No, you believe me, that's definitely just a pervert. Garp pointed to Clark's huge red panties on his lower body and roared as he threw a crisp white Navy uniform at him. Go change my clothes. Chapter 4. Under Garp's threat to his future girlfriend, Clark could only succumb to Garp's obscene power, reluctantly put on the Navy's clothes, and covered his such a powerful Superman suit under this white military uniform. Hey, I really don't know how to appreciate it. Obviously, he can show all his toned muscles, and this guy has to completely block it with this outfit plus a righteous cloak robe behind. Garp ignored Clark's spit on the naval uniform, and looked at the island that was supported in the distance, with a hint of affection on his face. Luffy, I'm going to meet you again soon. And when he saw this iconic naval warship, an astonishing scream erupted on the island ahead. For the people of the capital of Seven Waters, who have just experienced a huge battle, they definitely do not want another naval warship to come to this place now. In particular, they have already recognized this naval warship carrying the legendary hero Vice Admiral of the Navy, Vice Admiral Garp. What to do, that's a legendary hero of the Navy, Vice Admiral Garp, how did he come to us? Really, it's the same who repeatedly turned Gore D. Roger is a legendary naval hero forced into a corner. In the crowd, a lost green algae head heard the discussion of the surrounding crowd, and his heart tightened. He knew very well what Vice Admiral Garp meant to the entire Navy and what kind of strength this old Navy man who had crossed the ages had. No, you have to tell them the news quickly, otherwise it'll be too late. The current Straw Hat Regiment is not the opponent of this naval veteran at all. If such a terrible figure makes a move, the entire Straw Hat pirate talk will definitely be solved by him alone. It's just that the green algae head Solon forgot the fact that he is a road idiot. Pedal on. A neat line of footsteps spread along the coast, and a group of wolf-like naval soldiers quickly landed on the shore after the warship approached the coast, and their footsteps stepped on the ground, shocking the hearts of the people here. This is the soldier brought out by Vice Admiral Garp of the Navy, hero with a compelling elite aura on his body. These soldiers directly under Garp from the headquarters of the Navy give people a different feeling from the Navy soldiers from all over the world. The pirates in the crowd, one by one, watched the tall figure step down from the sea boat, and before they touched his eyes, they were frightened and did not have any fighting intent when they heard his hearty laughter. "Get out of the way, I'm here to find the Straw Hat Pirates." Soon, Garp and his soldiers found the place where the Straw Hat Pirates and his gang were located. "You two, wait here, Clark, come in with me." Clark looked at the huge wall in front of him and looked back at Garp suspiciously. "There is no door here." Don't look at Clark as a Superman. In fact, in order to pursue sisters, he has always maintained a good Superman image, never destroys public property, and has always been the best gentleman's companion in the hearts of girls. "Well, really, if there is no door, open this wall." Garp punched through the wall in front of him directly. The dog's head had covered his head, and the group of people inside immediately looked nervously at Garp and Clark behind him. "What's going on? You guys are the Straw Hats?" "It's the Navy." The group of people in the house who looked very young, after seeing Garp, quickly tensed up one by one and took a fighting stance. Clark slowly walked in through the wall that Garp had opened. "Old man Garp, reimburse this public expense." Garp just stood on the large stone that fell to the ground, and was ready to say a word with great momentum, but was directly asked by Clark behind him, and he was immediately deflated. Garp covered his forehead helplessly, always feeling that the atmosphere of the tough guy image he wanted to show was lost by Clark, an unreliable guy. "Get me up." So, he vented all his anger on a chair sitting in front of him, and was firmly protected by this group of pirates in the middle, and the head of the sleeping teenager was breathing. Garp's figure flashed, and when the group of Straw Hat Pirates in front of him didn't have time to react at all, he instantly appeared in front of Luffy, who was sleeping, and slammed a fist on his head. Luffy's body instantly flew upside down and knocked down another wall in the room, and the sleeping guy also covered his head and cried out in pain. "Ah, it hurts, it hurts. What's going on? How can the fist have an effect on the eraser?" The members of the Straw Hat Pirates couldn't help but feel very scared by the amazing strength shown by Garp. And Clark also stepped forward and said thoughtfully, "Old man Garp, we are here to catch the pirates. In that case, as a newcomer to the Navy, I will also make a little effort and knock them all down." Garp just wanted to say no, but after thinking about it, if he could take a little look at this guy's strength within a controllable range, it would be good. So he nodded and pointed to the Straw Hat Pirates in front of him. "Then I'll leave it to you." The Straw Hat Pirates, who had become extremely nervous when they heard Kapu's name, saw that Kapu gave Suwei the task of defeating them, and they couldn't help but get angry one by one. "If I am looked down upon like this, I will also be angry." The blonde-haired Sanji threw his cigarette on the ground and put out the fire with his shoe, although he was no match for Garp, but if he could defeat this guy, he might be able to get a chance to escape. "Grandpa, you underestimate me too much. Even if it is Grandpa, you can't easily catch me." At this moment, Luffy jumped up from the ground loudly, and then very cleverly did not go to his grandfather Garp to fight hard, but rushed towards Clark. Chapter 5. It's just that Luffy didn't see that the members of the pirate group behind him opened their mouths in surprise after hearing Luffy's cry one by one. "Nanny, Lieutenant General Garp is actually Luffy's grandfather." "Humph, Luffy, you've done a lot of great things during this time. If you can defeat this guy, this time I won't have to teach you a lesson with the defenseless fist of love." Garp stood behind, looking at Luffy and the members of his pirate group, a flash of relief in his eyes. This grandson has grown up. "Humph, stinky grandpa, don't underestimate me." Luffy, who was rushing towards Clark, stretched his fist and cried out loudly. "Rubber pistol!" Luffy's arm quickly stretched towards Clark, but Clark easily grabbed his wrist. Clark curiously looked at Luffy, who was really as flexible as rubber, and felt very strange. Are you a rubber man? Of course. Luffy was not annoyed when he saw Clark grabbing his wrist, his eyes lit up, and he used the elasticity of his extended rubber arm to drag his body, flew quickly in the direction of Clark, and kicked Clark. However, Clark shook his head regretfully, too slow, although he made full use of the elasticity of the rubber to shrink towards him, making him speed greatly increased, but in Clark's eyes, it was only a little faster than the speed of a snail. Clark grabbed Luffy's arm and flicked it gently, and the fluctuation extended along Luffy's rubber arm, so that Luffy, who had been moving in the air using the contraction of the rubber, also bounced up violently, and fell down and hit the ground. A. Luffy's head slammed on the ground several times, and the kicking posture that was originally maintained could not be maintained, and the whole person contracted dizzily back in front of Clark. Then Clark grabbed Luffy off the ground, gently kneaded it, and tied several knots around his body with Luffy's own rubber hands and rubber legs, and easily tied himself to the ground and could not move. Okay, solve one, it's up to you. As if slapping a leather ball, Luffy was delivered to his grandfather Garp, who laughed and looked at Luffy, who was tied up like a leather ball by Clark, and pointed to Luffy's nose, who was still struggling to untie his hands and feet. Smelly boy, now you know, pirates are not so good, they can be caught by powerful naval soldiers at any time. Luffy yelled, indicating that he was not convinced at all, but this scene fell in the eyes of the Straw Hat Pirates on the opposite side, but it made them a little unbelievable. Was their captain actually solved so easily? It's not good, that man's oppression is too strong, whether it is speed, the strength is far beyond the upper limit of what we can detect, so Luffy will be easily played between applause. Only when really facing Clark, Yamaji, who was standing at the front, could feel the suffocating pressure. Watching their captain being defeated so easily, Sanji's hands couldn't help but tremble, but it was too remiss to watch the captain be defeated like this, and to do nothing as a crew. And look at the man in front of him, and this Lieutenant General Garp have no real intention of arresting them, just let yourself see how big the gap is between yourself and these top powerhouses. Sanji moved sharply, quickly ran in front of Clark, raised his long legs, and kicked Clark's chest in the form of a jab. Brisket. The sharp gas stabbed directly into Clark's chest, and Sanji looked at Clark, who stood motionless and took his own kick with his body in a bit of surprise. He was actually unharmed under his own kick. How is this possible? However, he was able to hit the enemy's soft chest with this blow, forcing the air in the enemy's lungs to overflow, making it impossible to breathe, and it would be severely affected in a short time. However, the man in front of him didn't move a bit, didn't even blink his eyebrows, and withstood his attack like this? Well, it's not enough. Damn it! Yamaji, who felt that he was being slighted, quickly drew a circle on the ground with his left foot, his body quickly spun in the air, and his right leg was raised high, and he kicked directly at the most vulnerable neck point. Kicked. Behind Sanji, Usopp, who was originally scared to death, couldn't help but be surprised when he saw that Sanji's toes were almost touching Clark's neck. This moment subdued the man of their captain and put too much pressure on them. Moreover, Usopp, who knew that he and the others would not really be arrested by Garp, did not want to fight these guys at all, which was really terrible. Just now his feet were already trembling with fear, but now, if he was kicked to this point, Yamaji could also knock this guy down. Usopp was ready to jump out after Yamaji's success and perform his manhood, but Nami's eyes, who were standing on the side, were still solemn. The man's eyes did not have the slightest panic, and he didn't seem to worry about being kicked in the neck at all. Robin was also not optimistic about Sanji's attack at all, but she was not worried about anything, there was no malice in these people. And Frankie, who was not lively enough on the side, had already pulled out his hand cannon and was ready to attack behind Sanji. Bang! The powerful kick easily hit Clark's neck, but Sanji only felt his feet tremble. He was still motionless, and his body was as hard as steel. Clark smiled at Sanji and pointed to his face. This time the head is enough, but the strength seems to be a little less. I think you can use more force, although come here. Chapter 6. When Sanji heard this, his face twitched. This guy really underestimated him. He took a few steps back, his body spun sharply in place, and then jumped high and stomped Clark's face. However, the next moment something that shocked everyone's eyes happened. Clark, who stood motionless in front of him and let Sanji kick him, suddenly raised his leg, and before Yamaji's high kick landed, aimed at the gap in his leg exposed because of the high leg, and kicked it gently. Rua! When Clark's toes kicked Yamaji's crotch, Nami and Robin in the back seemed to hear the strange sound of Yamaji's egg from the violent vibration. They all seemed to be able to feel that Yamaji's lower body was shaking exaggeratedly like waves. Then, a crisp and incomparable sound of broken eggs resounded in the hearts of everyone in the Straw Hat Pirates. As if he had lost his soul, Sanji fell to the ground pale, covered his eggs with his hands in pain, and tears of pain flowed downward. Clark looked at Yamaji, who fell to the ground and shook his head rather pityingly. Actually, your last move is quite good, but your brain is a little bad. How can you really kick me in the face, isn't it? The other members of the Straw Hat Pirates in the back were dumbfounded. This guy is also too shameless. It was obviously he who let Sanji kick him in the face just now. The other men present looked at Clark's eyes a little cold. This guy is too terrible. If he doesn't make a move, he is already a shot to specialize in the next 3 ways. It is really terrible. Wah! Well done, Clark boy. However, another person laughed. Garp liked this method. In the battle with pirates, in order to win the battle, in order to reduce the casualties of his subordinates, it is necessary to do whatever it takes. The idea of focusing on the weaknesses of the enemy is also very important in battle, and if you still have a gentleman's fighting philosophy in battle, I am afraid that you will die ugly. No, I'm not fighting. Usopp saw that after solving Yamaji, he surrendered his gaze to his Clark, tightened his body, closed his legs, and covered his lower body to show that he was determined not to fight such a terrible enemy. So, the 2 beautiful young ladies over there, are you going to fight me too? Anyway, I can't watch my companion being bullied by you like this. Nami gripped her weather stick tightly, Robin crossed his hands together, and just then, Usopp, who had just said that he would not fight, quietly aimed his slingshot at Clark's head. Kill Smoke Star! A smoke grenade was shot into Clark's head by Usopp's slingshot, and Clark easily stretched out 2 fingers and clamped it, but the smoke bomb that exploded still plunged Clark's head into smoke. Good chance, Robin. I know, 3 rounds of flowers. 3 arms appeared on Clark's body, gripping his body tightly, and Nami also aimed the weather stick at Clark. Electric bubbles. Garp watched the 3 of them skillfully launch a joint attack on Clark together, and was happy that his grandson had such a united team. It's just that this is too simple to deal with Clark. It's not good, I can't catch him. At the moment Robin let out an exclamation, he grabbed Clark's 3 arms and was instantly broken free. Then, almost at the same time, Usopp was lightly knocked on the head, and his head was knocked into the ground. With a light stroke in Nami's hand, the weather stick was instantly taken away, and Robin, who wanted to use his ability, was gently separated by a stick. You've already lost. Good, so fast. Nami and Robin, who were still standing, looked at Clark standing in front of them in amazement. The man was faster than their eyes could see, and easily took away their weapons. Clark turned around and returned the weather stick to Nami, then touched a little fluffy elk who was looking at him nervously, as if he also wanted to fight. Then he shook his head, no longer had the slightest intention of continuing to fight, turned to look at Robin with blazing eyes, and with a very gentlemanly manner, bent down towards Robin, wanting to touch Robin's little hand, but suddenly took it back. This beautiful Miss Robin, may I ask you to associate with me? Robin looked at the serious Clark with incredulous eyes, a little unsure how to describe this sudden turn. Garp was also surprised, but quickly reacted, no, can't let this guy associate with this girl, otherwise the soldier he fancy will be abducted by the crew of his grandson's ship. Even Sanji, who had been curled up in pain on the ground, crawled towards this side like a caterpillar. Let go of your hand, I will not allow you to associate with the beautiful Miss Robin, Miss Robin is mine. Then, Sanji was covered by several arms that appeared and was thrown aside. Chapter 7. Robin smiled and withdrew his little hand, but found that Sue's eyes were even more burning after seeing his ability. Clark was already excited. How many years he had never been so intimately touched by a woman's little hands. For a Superman to be able to easily fly around the earth and maintain such a normal speed, you let him live the same life as ordinary people, maintain the same reaction speed and action speed as ordinary people, which is a naked torture. Such a world in superhuman eyes, more snails than snails. And being able to easily lift a heavy tank and throw it several kilometers away, but you keep him the strength to hold a fragile plate lightly, this is no longer torture, this is simply murder. For a Superman whose strength and speed have exceeded the measure of ordinary people, it is really difficult for him to maintain the same strength and speed as ordinary people. For Clark, his strength is stronger than the original Superman, and the lightest and most subtle trace of strength he can use has also exceeded the upper limit of ordinary people. This is not a question of whether to control or not control, this is a question of the magnitude of both sides at all at the same level. Therefore, Clark, who can cause harm to ordinary people with even the slightest force, uses specially manufactured items for his life. The people he came into contact with were basically superheroes in the world with extraordinary skills, far beyond ordinary people. Clark has lived a single life for more than 50 years, and it is difficult for others to understand Clark, who has crossed into Superman, experienced 2 lifetimes of single life, and desperately wants to have a girlfriend. Now, Clark has finally found an ideal situation to contact herself, and how can she not be excited if she is not afraid of being hurt by her own power at all? If Miss Robin can become his girlfriend, he will not have to contact Miss Robin in the future, and he will be able to hold her little hand directly, and even borrow her little hand. Clark, who had spent a long time with his 5 girls, looked at Robin's eyes extremely hot, and sparks had come out of the blazing heat. Moisture. What's wrong with your eyes? It's okay, it's just that when I see you, I feel that the love in my heart is surging. Clark looked up, and a fiery red laser shot out from his eyes, piercing the ceiling above his head, and shooting straight into the sky. After a while, Clark was excited to fire all his excitement out of his eyes. Then, in the stunned eyes of the Straw Hat Pirates, a ripe bird whose whole body was roasted by the hot light fell from the hole in the roof that had been opened by Clark's eyes and landed on Clark's hand. It's so fragrant. Luffy, who was tied into a ball, smelled the aroma of the barbecue and moved his index fingers, and at the same time looked at Clark's eyes quite attentively. You're such a funny guy, do you want to come to my boat? Cap knocked a big bag on Luffy's head with his loving fist. Bastard boy, not only did you not follow the training I gave you to become a strong naval soldier, but now you want to kidnap my soldiers. Luffy struggled violently and shouted violently at Garp. I don't want to be a navy, I want to be One Piece, this is what I made an appointment with Shanks. A group of people were once again shocked by Luffy's words, but they didn't expect that he actually had a relationship with Shanks. I'm sorry, little brother, you are the navy, I am a pirate, it is difficult for us to become lovers. Clark, who was rejected by the smiling Robin, looked dejected and threw the already roasted newsbird aside. Bastard boy, do you know who Shanks is? He is the second half of King's Landing and the Great Voyage, standing out among countless pirates, and is known as the existence of the 4 emperors. Only the forces between the 4 emperors and the navy headquarters and the 7 martial seas maintain a balance with each other, and once one side changes and the balance is broken, the whole world will collapse. I don't care, I made an appointment with Shanks. Luffy said stubbornly, and the angry Garp smashed another fist on his head and smashed out a large bag. Humph, you are my grandson, I will not catch you in this place. At this time, Nami and Robin also helped Luffy untie his body, and Garp and his subordinates began to tinker with the wall, and then Garp quietly asked again. Luffy, have you seen your daddy? Garp came and went quickly, leaving two navies who had known Luffy before to chat with him, and Garp had already left the Straw Hat Pirates with Clark. After all, he is the legendary hero Lieutenant General Garp, even if he doesn't care too much about catching his grandson who is clamoring to become One Piece, he can't arbitrarily make trouble with Justice Island, and Luffy, who has begun to become famous in the world, stays together for a long time without any action. You old man is really strange, your son is the most vicious wanted criminal in the world, your grandson is going to be One Piece, but you yourself are a big hero of the Navy. Clark stood on the boat, feeling the sea breeze, but seemed a little unhappy. Kafaha laughed, then patted the soulless Clark on the shoulder. Don't worry, Clark boy, there will definitely be a girlfriend for you in the Navy. Even if they didn't, I would have taught them pieces of iron. Garp, who saw Clark's power, thought even more firmly. Chapter 8. Time flies by, and Garp promises his grandson Luffy that he will never catch them on the island. So 3 days later, when Luffy and his party boarded their pirate ship and left, Kapuhaha laughed, commanded the warship under his name, and quickly approached the team of the Straw Hat Pirates. Grandpa, what are you doing? Didn't you say that you won't arrest us here? Luffy saw that Garp appeared again, opened his mouth and called at Garp, and Garp unapologetically dug his nostrils. Sorry, Luffy, there was a little accident, either you were obediently caught by me here, or you just sank here and were fed fish. As a source of apology, I'll be alone to deal with you this time. Garp threw his hand, and immediately a naval soldier held a heavy shell in Garp's hand. What does he want to do? Sanji watched Garp grab the cannonball and flick it twice in his hand, and for a while he was nervous and couldn't even care about the cigarette in his mouth. In the next instant, Garp grabbed the cannonball and threw it in the direction of the ship of the Straw Hat Pirates. Meteorite. The shell hit the sea surface next to the ship of the Straw Hat Pirates at a super fast speed, and after the explosion, the sea surface fluctuated, causing the ship of the Straw Hat Pirates to shake violently. Sanji gripped the side of the ship tightly and watched Garp's movements in surprise. Empty-handed. Amplification cannon. And it's more powerful than a cannon, and it's not baseball. Even Roronoya Solon was a little overwhelmed, the speed of the shell thrown by Garp just now was so fast, he didn't have much confidence that he could block the speed of the shell when this old man came to the real thing. Ha ha ha, the strength has dropped a little recently, this is not okay, bring me another 1,000. Clark, carrying a large number of shell boxes in one hand, appeared behind Garp and placed a large number of shells next to him. Garp took off the cloak of justice behind him and clenched his fists. Give me attention, stinky boys. Fistbone Shooting Star. 3 days ago, on the island of Bonaro on the Great Voyage, a pirate who opened his mouth and revealed several missing teeth, and his own pirate group members, looked at a man who appeared behind him in surprise. Ah, it turned out to be Captain Ace. Blackbeard's eyes flashed strange colors when he saw Ace, this guy, who had hunted him all the way from the second half of the Great Voyage, and now, finally, he had caught up with him. No, now call me Captain, this title is used by respectable people, don't treat me as an idiot. And you've become an amazing captain, Marshal of the Blackbeard Pirates. Captain D. Titch. Hearing Ace's voice calling his name, there was also a trace of terrible killing intent. Blackbeard not only did not have a trace of fear, but laughed out loud. Ha ha ha, Ace, long time no see, what's wrong, how do you know I'm here? Faced with Ace's killing intent slowly, Blackbeard didn't seem to care at all, but his eyes were filled with a strange ambition. Titchy, don't talk nonsense, after so many things, you should be clear about your current situation. Oh, I see, Ace, then let me say one more word, Ace. You. Come and join us, let's go to the world of government together. I have made a careful plan, the era of Whitebeard is almost over, and I will become One Piece, and the first thing is to kill Luffy the Straw Hat of the capital of the Seven Waters and give him to the world government. Ace's face became completely gloomy, and he looked at Blackbeard, who was making a big statement, and pressed his hat with his hand, with an unstoppable terrible anger in his voice. You're so presumptuous, that's my brother. Also, do you want me to join you? That, of course, is impossible. As soon as the words fell, a series of fireworks suddenly appeared on Ace's body, and Blackbeard's subordinate, Van Oka, held a sniper rifle in his hand, and in an instant Leon released several shots and hit Ace. Hehe, some people don't seem to know how to be polite. Ace didn't move, as a natural fruit ability, the ordinary physical attack method of shooting was not effective against him at all. He extended his finger to Van Oka, who was attacking him, and made a shooting gesture. Musket. Flames shot out from his fingers, continuously attacking Van Oka below the house, and he quickly dodged Ace's attack to the side. At this moment, a pirate behind Ace blatantly struck, and Ace stood on the roof of the house, and a terrifying huge flame burst out of his body. Yan Ring, Pillar of Fire. The huge flames that emerged from Ace's body directly knocked out the members of the Blackbeard pirate group who wanted to attack him from the rear, and his whole body seemed to be scorched. Oka, beggars, don't make a move. You are not his opponent yet, stand down. Seeing that persuading Ace to join him was fruitless, Blackbeard was not at all impressed, and strange black power surged all over his body. Ace looked solemnly at the fact that after eating the dark fruit, the flames in Blackbeard's body were even more grand. Subsequently, the inhabitants of Bana saw only the flames rushing into the sky and the darkness that almost swallowed everything, colliding with each other on the island. The houses on the island were strangely and completely disappeared during such battles, leaving no trace. In the end, the former inhabitants of the island only saw a hat that had fallen to the ground in the place where the battle took place. And this battle later became known as the turning point of a major event. Chapter 9. Why have my eyelids been jumping all the time lately? That must be because you, as a naval hero, let go of your pirate grandson and will be punished. On the warship, Clark lay next to Garp, teasing the old man without heart or lungs. According to Clark's observation, Garp could clearly destroy the Straw Hat Boy and his gang with cannonballs before, and none of them could catch Garp's shell attack. As a result, the guy fired so many shells that he didn't hit a single one. Stinky boy, don't talk nonsense, it's clear that they run fast themselves. Garp jumped up to educate this disrespectful old and young guy with a loving fist, but of course he was gently blocked by Clark. Although Garp's speed is indeed very fast among ordinary people in this world. However, Clark had gone to find the man who had raced with the Flash Kid. If only Diana had promised herself, she wouldn't have to set her sights on General Zed's adjutant, who was originally going to invade Earth and transform Earth into a habitable adjutant for Kryptonians. However, this world made Clark feel much better than the Earth before it. On Earth, he also tasted what Superman once tasted. Growing on Earth, originally he owed no one anything. But he also kindly helped others and saved many lives from great disasters. But half of the Earthlings regard him as a savior who can save the world, and half consider him an enemy. They also feel that as long as they have a 1% chance of becoming the enemy of the Earth, they must be 100% prepared for war. They could not control their own power, so they regarded themselves as enemies to be eliminated, and there were people who were idle and had nothing to do, and ran to Congress every day to demand their expulsion. Clark said he was humbled by their behavior. Without throwing off these guys, Clark directly pushed the Kryptonian spacecraft he was riding on to fly into the solar system and parked the ship on Saturn. He is not the stupid Superman in the original book, and he also leaves things that may pose a threat to him, as well as dangerous technologies that are not mastered by Earthlings. Even Zed's group, who were deliberately summoned by themselves later, after being wiped by Clark one by one, first cleaned up their spacecraft and all traces left behind, and sent them to Saturn, which no one on Earth could master. If you want to find a kryptonite that can deal with yourself, dream away. By the time humans can carry out space navigation, they will already be able to overcome kryptonite. Clark didn't leave anyone a chance to deal with him. There is also a Gotham Bat who has always felt that he is the biggest threat to the world. Well, now Clark Superman is as you wish, leaving the safety of the Earth. You will be saved by Batman. Filled with resentment, Clark felt that this world surrounded by the sea was wonderful. People will not be afraid of themselves because of the powerful unknown force, but just fear themselves. Unlike the Earthlings, there is always a small poke with themselves who have no grievances and no hatred, and try to kill themselves. Abominable smelly boy, you dare to stop the iron fist of the old man's love, do you still put the old man in your eyes? Today the old man will teach you a good lesson. Garp jumped up and reached for the hand he had just snapped, causing Clark to kick the smelly old man out with a kick. Garp's body flew out upside down and landed like a cannonball in the distant sea, but soon he stepped on the moon in the air like a nobody, and flew back in the direction of the warship. Smelly boy, today the old man must educate you well, what is called respecting the old and loving the young. Who is afraid of whom? Clark pulled the navy coat on his body, revealing a blue tight-fitting suit and a red panty that was worn against the honey bulge. Garp smelly old man, if I win today, don't say that my red cloak is like a pervert in the future. Stinky boy, if you want to win me, it's 100 years early. The two supermen in the air collided fiercely, and the sea water that shook in circles of sound waves rippled layer by layer to the outside. Clark and Garp punched and kicked each other, and the terrifying attack of fists to flesh made the shockwaves reverberate in circles. The sea was shaking, and the warships were also shaking left and right with the sea under this terrible impact. That's awesome! When the naval soldiers saw the battle between two people in the sky, they couldn't help but show a look of envy. One is the legendary Vice Admiral of their navy for a long time, and the other is Sergeant Clark, who has just joined the navy but has already shown extremely terrible combat effectiveness and fought back and forth with the legendary naval hero Vice Admiral Garp. Damn, is this guy made of steel all over your body? How can I beat the old man so much? Garp hit Clark with a blow, and after that, he was also kicked out by Clark, looking at the livid skin on his body, and he couldn't stop complaining to Clark in pain. What's wrong, old man Garp? It's going to be overwhelmed by such a little, I've just started warming up. Humph, smelly boy, don't be proud, old man, I will give you a good look. A completely different momentum began to appear on Garp's body, and Clark could feel that Garp had become much more terrifying than just now. His body was covered with a layer of pure black domineering, and his defense and attack power were far beyond the ordinary state just now. However, in this world, without kryptonite, Clark has no natural enemies. Chapter 10. Stinky boy, let you see now the Iron Fist education of true love. Garp suddenly disappeared in mid-air, stepping on the moon step, moving around Clark at a very high speed. As a legendary hero of the Navy, I am afraid that except for Roger, the Pirate King who has fought with him many times before, and other sea pirates and his comrades warring states, few people can know how powerful this old man who has served in the Navy for 4 or 5 years is. Garp was able to break through the sound barrier with the strength of his body at this moment, and the extremely terrifying sound wave came to his side before it reached Clark's ears. The stomach suffered a heavy blow, Clark's body arched, and then his arm was tightly clamped by a pair of iron hands like steel, and the whole person was violently flown out in the air. Then, in the process of flying upside down, the back suffered another heavy blow, and the whole person hit the sea like a cannonball, splashing a large pool of water. How stinky boy, do you dare to underestimate the old man? Kafaha laughed, standing in mid-air, seeing the sea. Clark slowly emerged and wiped the moisture from his face. Not good, old man Garp, your speed is actually faster than the sound barrier, which is indeed beyond my expectations, so, against you, I will start the second stage. Clark slowly rose into the air, and the big red cloak behind him was wet and sticking to his back, making him a little uncomfortable. Before, I always used my ears to catch the movements of others, and just by listening to the sound, I could distinguish the routes and trajectories of all the enemy's attacks. However, since I can't catch your voice before your attack arrives, I can only use my eyes for the rest of my life. Clark flew to the same height as Garp, who stepped on the moon, and despite several heavy iron fist attacks, there was still no scar on his body. Garp also felt that his fist was like a complete hit on hard steel, and it was difficult to cause damage to this guy. You mean, you didn't use your eyes at all before, just your ears? Clark nodded gently. Superman's senses were not known how many times more sensitive than ordinary people. If he can't close his senses and just concentrate on receiving the information he wants, the countless noises he hears from all directions, the sight he sees, the smell of his nose, these countless information, will make him feel a very headache. The Kryptonian troops who have just come to Earth need to use the equipment of the Kryptonians and block these things in order to be able to fight normally, otherwise countless information pours into the brain, which will make a Kryptonian instantly lose its combat effectiveness. Garp looked at Clark a little unexpectedly. I didn't expect that this guy actually kept such a hand, but even if you look with your eyes, the old man can still beat you with the iron fist of love. Humph, anyone can brag about leather, let the old man come to see if you are as powerful as you say. Garp suddenly disappeared in front of Clark with a swoosh, and the next moment, appeared above Clark, raised his huge fist, and slammed towards Clark's head. Suddenly, Clark suddenly opened his eyes, and the world instantly fell silent, and the warship floating on the sea stopped swinging, and stopped strangely in the shaking position along with the waves on the sea. The Garp fist in front of him is full of terrifying black-armed color domineering, which is such a thing, so that Garp will not have enough defensive ability when he fights Clark. But at this moment, his resolute face has been staying in front of Clark, his fists are clenched tightly, and every swirling green tendon can be easily seen by Clark. Even the clouds that had been floating in the sky and the wind gently blowing across the sea were completely still. In this world, everything became so quiet and slow, only Clark was alone, slowly circling Garp's body and gently flying to his side. Then, gently stretching out his foot, he placed it in front of Garp. Then, time flew by, and Garp, who was about to punch Clark in front of him, was surprised to find that in just a moment's effort, the person in front of him had disappeared. Then, under his feet, who was still flying, he was suddenly stumbled and screamed, and the whole person rolled forward and fell into the sea. Stinky boy, what the hell is going on with you? Is that teleportation? Garp, who jerked his head out of the sea, shouted out at Clark, who was flying in the sky, and Clark suddenly smiled at Garp, which made Garp have a very bad feeling. In the next instant, his eyes suddenly went black, and he couldn't see anything. Garp's big hand grabbed his head hard, his heart tightened, and he was half cold. Isn't this his dog's head hat? It is something that he put in his lounge on the warship. How could it suddenly appear on his head? Moreover, a series of Clark's name signatures were streamed on it. This guy, just in a moment under his nose, took something in his room and signed his name. Such a speed, it is really a little scary. Garp swallowed deeply, and suddenly let out a long sigh of relief. It's really the back wave of the Yangtze River pushing the front wave. This junior is really amazing. One day, the whole world will be shocked by his strength. Chapter 11. If you don't fight, you really didn't expect that it would be time to be surpassed by young people so soon. Garp waved his hand in the sea and returned to the warship in 3 steps and 2 steps. But his words clearly fell on the ears of all the soldiers of the warship, and they were shocked one by one. You look at me, I look at you, I want to confirm whether you heard wrong, or there is a problem with your ears. Just now, Lieutenant General Garp actually took the initiative to admit that he is now inferior to the Clark who has just joined Lieutenant General Garp for a few days. Is this the world changing too fast for them to keep up? You must know that Vice Admiral Garp has repeatedly driven One Piece Roger into a corner, and repeatedly rejected the legendary naval hero who wanted to promote him to a general by the top of the Navy. For the Navy, Vice Admiral Garp and now Marshal of the Warring States are monuments to the Navy, a flag, spiritual beliefs, and objects of longing. But such a Vice Admiral Garp actually said in his own mouth that he was no longer as good as that guy, and the newcomer who had just joined the Navy was too terrifying. This is even more shocking than when they talked to his grandson Luffy in the capital of Seven Waters. Garp said that the leader of the Revolutionary Army, the most dangerous wanted revolutionary in the world, is Garp's son, Luffy's grandson. Is the sky going to change? A group of naval soldiers stared at the man flying in the sky with a slightly awe-inspiring look, wearing a blue tight-fitting tunic, and the cloak behind his back was boasting with the sea breeze, and couldn't help but ask this question. Ha ha ha, Clark Smelly Boy, you just told me that I can let you use your eyes, then do you have any more other ways? Clark smiled confidently. He was not afraid to say his way of fighting. In this world, no one can find kryptonite, which means that Superman is an existence without weaknesses. As for the hint of unwillingness in Kapuna's question, Clark didn't care. In fact, Garp is already very powerful in Clark's division of the strength of people in this world. He was also the first person he had seen to break through the sound barrier and be able to keep his ears from keeping up with his movements. And when Clark uses his eyes, he can already notice the Flash's movements when he runs at the speed of light, and also keep up with the Flash's movements and fight with him in a space where time has been infinitely slowed down. Of course, Old Man Garp, when I can't defeat my opponent by all means, I will push the enemy in that direction. Clark pointed to the warm glow of the sun in the sky, a smile in his eyes. The source of his own power is the stable burning sun, the power of the sun, making the cells in his body more powerful, terrifying, and the ability to recover and heal has reached an amazing level. By dragging the enemy in the direction of the sun, Clark can become more and more powerful as he gets closer and closer to the sun. Even, he can enter the sun directly without being harmed physically. Only now, he can't directly enter the very center of the sun to practice, allowing himself to completely overcome the last weakness, the power of kryptonite. Garp opened his mouth wide, thinking that you kid knew how to brag and fly towards the sun. Suddenly, Caprang shook, his head a little clouded. Yes, this, how come I have never thought about these things? All the people in this world have their eyes set on the sea, and all the pirates want to find the place where Roger hides his treasure. But I have never thought about it. I have never seen whether there is another strangely beautiful and vast world above the vast sky in addition to the sea. Garp's heart suddenly shook. He suddenly sounded, when he and Clark first met, it was above the sky, a green light flashed, and then Clark fell from the sky. In addition to Clark, is there someone as powerful as him in the sky? Garp was a little worried. After all, the first Clark from heaven had given him a feeling of being unbeatable. It is comparable to the speed of a ghost like teleportation, terrifying combat ability, tireless physical strength, and penetrating terrifying red lasers from the eyes. If Clark knew what Garp was thinking, he would definitely laugh at him for thinking too much. Now he is already the last Kryptonian, where can he find a Superman as powerful as himself? At this moment, Clark's ears suddenly moved, and the sound of a gust of ocean currents reached his ears. He opened his eyes wide and looked happily at Garp's ship. Grandma was an egg, and every day followed Garp on the ship to eat extremely unpalatable military food. His mouth could not stand it. It's finally time to open a fresh meal. Clark swooped down, crashed into a huge wave on the sea, and disappeared from everyone's eyes. What is he going to do? Some confused naval soldiers, one by one, gathered at the side of the ship and looked at the sea below. On the calm sea, it suddenly began to roll violently, and a large amount of sea water was coming out from one point. The sea began to shake, and more sea water came out from this point together. That's the Sea King class. A group of soldiers looked at the huge black shadow that was getting closer and closer under the surface of the sea, and they couldn't help but panic. Chapter 12. The size of this huge Black Sea King class Black Shadow far exceeded the Sea King class they had seen before. This size Sea King giant beast has the ability to easily overturn the entire warship. Why would this kind of Sea King suddenly appear under the warship with sea floor stones? Just when the soldiers were panicking, the huge Sea King broke out of the water, and a huge body that was countless times larger than the warship completely appeared on the sea, struggling weakly. That's Clark. He lifted the Neptune class. Oh my god! The soldiers opened their eyes wide, looking at Clark below the Sea King. This small figure actually directly lifted the entire huge Sea King giant beast from the sea water in midair. How can there be such a human being? All the soldiers, including Garp, had the same question in their hearts: how could there be such a human being who could do such a thing? The huge Sea King class is not only countless times larger than the warship, but also countless times the weight of the warship. If it was to repel them so that they did not dare to harass the ships, Garp was confident that he could easily do it, but if he wanted to directly use his physical strength to lift such a huge Sea King, Garp looked at his arms and legs, and helplessly admitted that he could not do such a thing. Garp looked at Clark's current appearance, and a huge expectation suddenly arose in his heart. Because Clark's power in front of him so far is too strong. Because of this power, he can easily do what others can't. Therefore, his attack method is very monotonous and very simple, that is, the combination of straight punches and feet, because even if it is like this, Clark, who drops 10 times with one force, will not meet the opponent. Because Garp feels that even he can't see the speed of this guy, then there should be no one in this world who can see Clark's movements clearly. But if Clark could be taught moves that are stronger and more easily powerful, would he feel a stronger sense of belonging to the Navy? Moreover, Garp believes in his own eyes, and he believes that Clark is a man who can stand by the justice and code in his heart, even with such strength. Such a person, with greater power, is a blessing to the whole world. It's really looking forward to what Clark looks like after learning the Navy 6. Garp looked at Clark with satisfaction as the huge Sea King body that covered the sky gently towards the sea. What? This kid just threw the Sea King class directly towards the sea next to the warship. After Garp saw Clark's movements clearly, he was shocked and his face turned pale. He had just praised in his heart that such a guy had power as a blessing for the world, but he didn't expect this guy to give him face so much, saying that he would hit his face when he said it. Such a guy with no heart and lungs is not a blessing of the world at all, but a good scourge of the world. The huge sky covering, so that the warships on the sea were shrouded in terrible shadows, the body of the Sea King, was gently thrown by Clark and fell sharply on the sea. A loud sound of falling water, accompanied by a huge tsunami-like wave that was splashed, hit the direction of the warship. Brush pull pull. The terrifying huge waves tens of meters high directly submerged the warship in the sea, and wave after wave of huge waves made the warship that was accompanied by the turbulent sea surface undulating again and again by the waves. Abominable smelly boy, are you trying to drown the old man? Garp yelled at Clark, who was flying in midair. Clark was thinking about how to deal with the huge seafood meat that was sent to the door, and after hearing Garp's call, he turned around and said to Garp a little embarrassed. I'm sorry, I thought you guys could handle it easily. I was just concentrating on what to do with this guy and forgot about you. Clark's heartless laughter was itching his teeth. Fortunately, the soldiers on this ship were his own elite, and nothing lost because of this big wave. It's just that many people were caught off guard and choked, and their whole bodies were soaked in seawater and soaked. Garp felt that he should first educate this stinky boy, otherwise, having great power and only being bound by his own inner rules, regardless of the wanton actions of others, would easily bring great pain to the world. But what Garp didn't know was that on Earth, because he was very tired of those politicians trying to point fingers at him all day long, Clark finally decided to follow Fiore, the last female adjutant of Krypton, to live in a no-man's colony. He came into this world unintentionally. How could he let himself be bound by those boring rules again? Sorry, let's think about how this guy should eat first. Clark's eyes lit up as he looked at the huge Sea King in front of him, who had been knocked unconscious by himself, and made up his mind not to let the chef on the warship who made things like pig food deal with this big guy. Chapter 13. It turns out that this kind of thing always comes and goes. After Clark grabbed a huge Sea King to use as food to improve his diet, 2 more Sea Kings emerged from the sea, angrily waving their huge bodies and rushing towards the warship. Looking at the scene of Zhang teeth dancing and dancing claws, the dark clouds seem to be the end of the world, and I have just seen Clark easily lift the Sea Kings from under the surface of the sea, and the naval soldiers say that they are no longer afraid of such a scene. Sure enough, seeing 2 Sea Kings surging with huge waves, he felt that he was likely to have no way to eat the meat of these 3 huge Sea Kings before following Garp back to the naval base. And if you want to be able to eat delicious seafood all the time, Clark already has an idea. He took a deep breath, the powerful air pressure swirled in his lungs, and the powerful force inside his body compressed the air to the extreme. Facing the direction of the attacking Sea Kings, Clark stood on the warship facing the sea in front of him and exhaled a deep cold breath. Call. The extremely cold wind blows the surface of the sea, causing it to quickly freeze. The thick layers of ice crystals completely froze the entire sea surface, and the white ice surface continued to spread out towards the front under the urging of the cold air. Even standing behind Clark, even if the sun was still shining just now, making people unable to mention the sunny weather, these naval soldiers seemed to suddenly come to another season the next moment, feeling a complete chill. Squeak! The ice used the pen Neptune to swim much faster, quickly turning the waves set off by the Neptune into ice together with their huge bodies. And Clark slowly took a deep breath after blowing this cold breath, looked at the frozen sea surface and Sea King behemoths in front of him, and nodded with satisfaction. Now you can eat fresh seafood. The soldiers on the naval warship fell on the deck together, unable to get up for half a day, and after a while, they exclaimed. So you just want to eat frozen seafood? Half a day later, the main island of the Navy, Marinfander, is the headquarters of the World Navy and a sacred place in the hearts of sailors all over the world. There is the legendary highest combat effectiveness of the Navy, the existence of the 3 major admirals of the Navy, the legendary hero Vice Admiral Garp, and the warring states of Buddha, who used to be comrades with Garp and is now a marshal. The strongest naval elite in the world is gathered here, and often a colonel-level officer of the headquarters is sent out, and he can have the ability to compete with the highest commander of the 4 Seas Division. At this moment, near the watchtower of the naval headquarters Marinfander, he is responsible for guarding the situation in the surrounding sea area and preventing anyone from attacking the naval headquarters. Although since more than 20 years ago, the only daring sea thief, the Golden Lion, broke into the naval headquarters Marinfander, was taken by the legendary hero Garp and the warring states of Buddha, who was still a general of the warring states at the time, and imprisoned in the Navy's advanced city prison. No one dared to offend the majesty of the Navy headquarters. After so many years of calm and waves, the naval soldiers in charge of security have long been relaxed. After all, where else would anyone dare to break into the naval headquarters like this, unless he didn't have long eyes? Bored soldiers in charge of vigilance gathered together to chat, and suddenly, a naval recruit ran over in a panic. It's not good, there is an emergency. The group of naval soldiers stood up one by one in a panic, looking at the sea level in the distance. There was a small ship that was galloping towards the naval headquarters at a very high speed, and behind the ship, there were 3 huge terrifying figures also galloping at a very high speed behind. Out! Something has happened. The unprecedented great excitement hit the hearts of these guarded naval soldiers, and the 3 terrifying huge figures brought a great shock to the hearts of these garrison soldiers who had never seen such a terrible scene. Sound the alarm quickly. There are Sea Kings following behind the naval warships, preparing to attack the headquarters of the Navy, Marinfander. Through the telescope, the naval soldiers easily identified the 3 huge figures following the naval ship in front of them, which were Sea Kings. It's just that the Navy soldiers are a little surprised that the three huge Sea Kings seem to have something strange. However, at this time, the naval warships and Sea Kings were attacking the naval headquarters at a strange speed, and they did not have time to think about anything more, and quickly notified the other personnel one by one. Then, when the headquarters of the Navy heard the sirens that had not been heard for many years, one by one they froze for a while, and quickly became excited. How many years have I not encountered someone storming the headquarters of the Navy, a terrible thing that is rare in 10 years, it is very exciting. A group of naval soldiers gathered in the base in front of the headquarters excitedly, watching the behemoth that was getting closer and closer, and they couldn't help but get excited. Finally, you can encounter such a good thing that makes people's blood boil and can make meritorious achievements at the headquarters of the Navy. 20 years ago, the story of naval hero Garp and Sengoku fighting the Golden Lion at the same time threw it into the big prison, and now it excites the soldiers. Only soon they discovered that something was wrong. This naval warship was Vice Admiral Garp's ship, and in front of the ship, there seemed to be a figure. Chapter 14. Well, that's really a person. Gathered at the naval headquarters, they thought that Marin Fander was about to be attacked, and the naval soldiers standing on the coastline of the naval headquarters were stunned to see the warship that was rushing towards it at a speed beyond common sense. Vice Admiral Garp's warship was heading towards this place at a terrifying speed, and behind him, three huge figures covering the sky were following behind the warship. That man seems to be dragging Lord Garp's boat. A group of people squinted at the upcoming Garp's ship, and soon, the news of Marin Fander's attack by an unknown Sea King class quickly spread. The Yellow Ape and Sakaski, one of the highest combat forces of the headquarters, also came here separately, preparing for the attack. It's just that what makes them a little puzzled is that this doesn't look like an attack. What's going on? Who is fooling the Navy? 3 Sea Kings alone can't attack the Navy headquarters. Sakaski said with a serious face, looking at the rapidly approaching ship in front of him and the shadow behind. Even if the speed of these 3 Sea Kings is extremely terrifying now, giving people an irresistible momentum, he does not think that the 3 Sea Kings can bring any threat to the military headquarters. It's time. Clark, who was in front of the warship, looked at the nearby naval headquarters. Marin Fander jumped up from the sea and flew to the coastline of the headquarters. What are you? Clark, who was wearing a blue tights and red underwear, was quickly surrounded as soon as he landed. Facing this group of guys who surrounded him, Clark raised his hands without care, indicating that he did not have the slightest malice. Without Clark's drive, the speeding ship finally slowly reduced its speed, and little by little slipped into the port of the naval headquarters. Disgusting! The heart-rending feeling of vomiting came from the ship, and the rows of admirals who had just been hanging on the ship and floating in the air because of their high speed, one by one, supported the side of the ship and vomited heavily. For the first time, these naval elites vomited so badly because the speed of the ship was too high. And at the rear of the ship, Garp also threw down the 3 Sea King ropes behind him, took a big stride, laughed and got off the boat. Ha 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 ha, I didn't expect so many people to greet me. Garp saw so many people gathered here, and looked at so many naval ships in front of him quite proudly. Lieutenant General Garp, what the hell is going on? Garp triumphantly pointed to the huge Sea King behind the ship. I just caught a few huge Sea Kings, let's eat them together. Garp looked at the huge formation that the entire Navy headquarters was alarmed by, and took the initiative to take everything on himself. Anyway, he often did many surprising things. If these guys knew that Clark had just joined the Navy and caused a huge shock in the headquarters, Clark would encounter a lot of trouble in his future career. Garp is very optimistic about Clark's future, and does not want to let someone like Clark, who already has top strength, leave the Navy. Ah, it turns out to be like this. It seems that Lieutenant General Garp is really old and strong. Since this is the case, then I will leave first. The yellow ape turned into a yellow light and flashed away in front of everyone, and basically no one could see it clearly, except Clark. Clark looked curiously at the direction where the yellow ape left, and he had just clearly seen the whole process of the yellow ape leaving. Under the capture of his eyes, the yellow ape's body turned into a yellow light, slowly swallowed in his line of sight, and left. However, in fact, Clark felt that he could easily catch the yellow ape, and although his body turned into a light, he did not really reach the speed of light. Otherwise, this person will not be easily captured by himself who is not visually focused. And the yellow ape who left, standing in the distance, a drop of cold sweat dripped on his face, and just now, he felt a huge pressure. When he used his ability to leave, his whole body seemed to be in a state of being spied on, making him feel as if he was completely seen through. Sakazuki looked at Kapuhaha with some unhappiness and laughed and walked up, playing haha, using a group of naval soldiers to worship and admire him, and easily turned such an event that caused turmoil in the entire navy. He glanced gloomy at Clark, who was standing beside Garp, and his intuition told him that this man was very terrifying. Sakazuki snorted coldly in dissatisfaction and left the place. After Garp coped with the navy soldiers, he dragged Clark towards the headquarters, and the curious navy soldiers ran to Garp's warship one by one, only to see that the three huge sea kings were covered with a thin layer of ice, freezing them all in it. Looking closer, they could still feel a little chill emanating from above. This made some naval soldiers can't help but shake their bodies coldly. This looks, it seems to be the move of the Green Pheasant General, this ice, it's really cold. A group of naval soldiers looked at the huge Sea King class that was firmly frozen with awe. If it were them, they would not be able to deal with such a huge sea beast. Chapter 15. Young man, are you the newcomer Garp can't wait to recommend to me? In the Marshal's office of the Navy headquarters, Marshal Sengoku, who had a goatee, was trying to make Clark, who was looking left and right in front of him, feel his majesty with a serious expression. Then the document in his hand was eaten by a real goat. Wow, this goat is so interesting. Garp sat on the sofa on the side, watching this scene and couldn't help laughing. Sengoku's face was a little unbearable, and gently drove the goat to the side. Sengoku sorted out his expression, trying to make himself look more coercive, and even his voice became more imposing. Clark, let me ask you again, what are your ideals? Click, 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 click. The warring states, who finally became serious, heard the sound of gulping senbei being chewed beside him again. He stood up angrily, glared at Garp on the side, and rushed towards Garp with his fists. You old guy will know to steal my senbei as soon as he comes back. Just a little senbei, don't be so petty, Sengoku. Garp didn't care about squeezing his eyebrows at the warring states, making warring states' hair stand on end. This old and disrespectful guy was going to him off. Clark looked at the lively appearance of the two old men who were about to fight, but seemed to be unusually harmonious, and a different illusion suddenly appeared in his mind. I always feel that the relationship between the two old men is too good. Ahem, Wu, let me ask you again, Clark, what is your dream? Sengoku finally made the atmosphere serious again, facing Clark, his hands clasped, a little nervous, and some expectant looking at the young man in front of him. From Garp's mouth, he learned what kind of terrifying destructive power this young man possessed, that is, a terrifying power that surpassed Garp. If this young man had a terrible conviction in his heart, it would be a great disaster for the whole world. I aspire to end my single life. Oh no, I want to find a cute gentle kind, beautiful and generous girl who can go up to the hall and down to the kitchen. Clark imagined in his mind the beautiful face, gentle personality and kind personality of the person he would spend his life with, and excitedly painted a good life in the future. However, Clark, who felt that he was saying this was showing some too urgent to get rid of his single career, coughed. In the eyes of the warring states, who were still a little confused, stunned, felt that there was something wrong with their ears, and wanted to hear what Clark said again. Clark pretended to be serious, frowned, and shook his head. No, it's not my dream. Sengoku let out a long sigh of relief, that is, how can there be such an outrageous idea? You are a man with terrible power. In this world, huge power means wealth, power, fame, women are all low-hanging fruit. You must be able to have greater dreams, such as catching all the pirates and making the whole world peaceful, right? Facing the slightly expectant eyes of the warring states, Clark's eyes gradually became much clearer. I am the last member of the Kryptonians, and the code of life of the Kryptonian family and all the genes of Kryptonian life are stored in every cell of my body. I am the last hope of the Kryptonians, and my parents definitely hope that I can revive the Kryptonian race and let me continue the Kryptonian race. I want to recreate the Kryptonian race, and I need to give birth to many, many children for the descendants of the Kryptonians. I'm going to keep the Kryptonian gene alive. Sengoku pondered for a moment, looking at the light in his eyes. He felt that he was very great Clark, and felt that this young man embraced great dreams in his heart. What a poor child, obviously with such great power, but already alone, no compatriots exist in this world. Sengoku felt that he could approve of such a dream, because there was no conflict between maintaining the justice of the Navy, and he could even help Clark rebuild the Kryptonians. So, I want to find a girlfriend who suits me, have many, many children with me, and slowly raise them. Old man Garp, as you said, you can help me find a suitable girlfriend at the headquarters of the Navy. If you lie to me, hee, watch out for me pounding you with my little fist. Garp shuddered. This kind of Clark didn't look friendly at all. Garp firmly believed that if he was really hammered by this guy with a small fist, his body and bones could not stand it. No, you have to help Clark Kid find a girlfriend quickly, otherwise the single maniac feels like it's going to destroy the world. Garp tensed up, and suddenly felt that he was pressed on a heavy burden. Well, Clark, you just joined the Navy, and it is already an exception that Garp can promote you to a sergeant, and you don't have more combat merits and resume now, which is not enough to promote to a higher position. And you want to soak in the beauty of the Navy, except you. Beyond this handsome look, Sengoku looked at wearing a closet in front of him, revealing all the 8-pack abs, and there was a red panty on the lower body, and a huge embarrassing honey bulge, against his will said that you are so handsome. You still need to have more battle merits, beautiful women worship heroes, so let's arrange a simple task for you to do first, and we will also help you find some suitable female navy during this period, see if you can get together, how about? No problem. Clark's eyes lit up as he looked at his right hand, right sauce, about to say goodbye to you. After the naval soldiers who arranged Clark's accommodation took Clark away, in the marshal's office, Sengoku and Garp looked at each other, and Sengoku coughed. Ahem, Garp, although Clark does look like that place is above average, are you sure he really, ahem, even that place is that scary? Garp nodded solemnly. Warring states, Clark's eyes are not afraid of bullets, and the whole body is already hard to a certain extent, so believe me, immediately gather all the talented female soldiers in the naval headquarters, and the old man will personally teach them the meaning of the 6-style iron. A flash of envy flashed on Sengoku's face, and he nodded imperceptibly. Okay, I'll leave this matter to you. Chapter 16. Hey beauty, are you interested in having a cup of coffee with me? Hey, don't go. Yo, cute girl, you are my favorite type, are you interested in talking about life with me, talking about ideals, watching a movie and eating or something? There are really many female soldiers in the Navy headquarters, and the people of this world have suffered from pirates, and the per capita level of force is much higher than that of the Earth. Men and women, young and old, sometimes have to take up arms to resist in the face of pirate invasion. As the center of the Navy, the largest violent institution of the world government, the naval headquarters of Marin Fander, although the majority of the Navy is still male soldiers, but there are also many strong female soldiers. Along the way, Clark had seen many nice female Navy soldiers hurriedly passing by him. Although these female soldiers have not yet reached the level of strength and sexiness as Princess Diana of Wonder Woman on Earth, they are much more powerful than ordinary Earth women. And, most importantly, they are all tall, and their posture is not bad. Hi beauty, tonight there is. Is it empty? In Clark's eyes, he saw a huge beautiful face, but he needed to raise his head to look up. You boy is really interesting. This is the first time I have seen someone ask me for a date. The huge face lowered its head, and the big eyes blinked at the little Clark in front of him. Clark's hair stood up, although this beautiful lieutenant general of the giant race looked very interesting, but such a large size, he definitely couldn't fit in with her. Clark, who pulled up her legs and ran away from the eyes of the female lieutenant general of the giant race, and the female lieutenant general of the giant race let out a series of bold laughter and strode away. Only the Navy soldier in charge of taking Clark to his residence, who was left in a daze and could not find any trace of him. Hooping and panting, Clark was terrified. The giantess just stretched out. His wrist was thicker than his whole person, and if he had dinner with such a giantess, Clark felt that it was not romantic at all. Who are you? Why did you break into the naval training base? If you don't answer truthfully, Tina can't spare you. Just as Clark breathed a sigh of relief, a crisp female voice sounded behind him, and Clark had just looked back to see a big wave girl with pink hair and a turbulent figure. It's beautiful. Can't help but praise the beauty in front of her, but Tina feels that Clark in front of her is too frivolous, and there is no Navy uniform on him, and he is wearing such a strange costume. Looking at the lump of honey bulge that couldn't be wrapped in the red panties that were worn outside, Tina only felt that this guy in front of her really didn't know shame. Tina hates frivolous men. Say the purpose of your sneaking into the training base of the Navy headquarters. 2 rows of black iron railings suddenly extended from her hands, one left and one right, and with the wave of her arms, they moved tightly towards Clark in the middle. It's just that Clark is not even an opponent for old man Garp, and how could he be caught by Tina so easily? A rather elegant hand pressed on Tina's closed iron railing, and with a beautiful turnover, Clark leaned on the iron created by Tina's fruit ability, showing a mouthful of white teeth towards Tina. Beauty, Covenant. A series of black iron crosses appeared on Tina's head, and the man in front of her was really too frivolous. Moreover, repeatedly challenging Tina's patience, Tina decided that she must arrest this frivolous guy in front of her. Tina is angry. Reclaiming her fruit ability, Tina rushed forward with an arrow, raised her leg and kicked Clark in the head with an extremely sharp kick. Don't be so angry, this beauty, I don't mean any offense. Clark lowered his head slightly, and Tina's beautiful legs swept over his head, blowing a gust of wind. After the kick, Tina quickly turned around and kicked, and a back kick stabbed Clark's lower abdomen straight up. I said, the two of us have no grievances in the past and no hatred in recent days, so we really don't need this. A hand reached forward and blocked Tina's front, catching Tina's kick steadily, grabbing her shoes and ankles. Clark couldn't help but gently touch Tina's ankle with his fingers. Ugh! A violent cry came out of Tina's mouth, and Clark suddenly broke out in a cold sweat, and they all forgot that their hand strength was too much for them. Moreover, I haven't even felt what it feels like to touch the little feet of the lady in front of me. Let go of Tina's feet. Hearing a cry of pain from Tina in front of him, Clark quickly let go of his hand, and Tina withdrew her foot in pain, and her ankle was already blue. Her eyes were wandering, and when she was just grabbed by Clark's foot, she felt as if her foot was embedded in a piece of hard steel, which made her feel painful. It's just that as a captain in the Navy, Tina will never allow herself to be frivolous by such a frivolous man, leaving tears of pain. Tina wants to teach you a lesson. Gently rubbing her somewhat bruised ankle, Tina stood up with a strong limp, and her body burst with burning fighting intent. Clark scratched his head and gently persuaded. Let's not fight, I apologize to you, if you continue to fight, you will be injured. Tina's eyes were even more humiliated, this damn guy actually looked down on Tina like this. Chapter 17. Feeling that she was underestimated by Clark, Tina was even more angry, and Clark was also quite distressed. Don't fight, this beauty feels that she despises her and looks down on her, hit it, it's not Clark who is modest, if she is really serious, a finger can poke her to death. Damn it, I obviously just wanted to ask her out for a cup of tea. It was really impossible to jump into the Yellow River, and Clark gently dodged the non-stop stormy attack from Colonel Tina. He didn't even want to resist, after all, what if he was injured because his iron body defense was too strong? It really couldn't be clear, and Clark lamented his kindness and purity while dodging Colonel Tina's attack. At this moment, a large group of naval soldiers rushed out and appeared behind Tina. Miss Tina, what was the sound just now? Miss Tina, who are you fighting with? Is anyone hurting you? A large group of naval soldiers who looked like they had been captured by Tina's beauty rushed behind Tina one by one in righteous indignation. Just after Tina was accidentally touched by Clark's ankle and touched, she made a cry, and they hurried to this side. Is it you who dares to hurt our Miss Tina? A group of naval soldiers saw Tina's limp and mobility problems, and instantly saw the bruise on Tina's foot. Damn it! Dare to hurt Colonel Tina, brothers, beat him. Although this group of naval soldiers is young, they are quite self-aware, and Colonel Tina, who is a devil fruit ability, has not been able to take advantage of the man in front of him, and they are naturally not Clark's opponents. It's just that they have the upper hand, so they want to work together to get justice for Colonel Tina, maybe they can make Colonel Tina impress him. A crowd rushed towards Clark with excitement, and Clark helplessly looked at the group of enthusiastic naval soldiers, and stomped his foot fiercely on the ground in front of him. The hard, specially made masonry ground was easily trampled and shattered. On the broken floor, a layer of terrifying chi waves flew out towards the outside, and the shaking ground made them unable to stand, and one by one the fluctuating ground flew up. And the huge air wave directly swept them out, falling backwards one by one, falling to the ground, rolling and crawling, embarrassed. This is Clark's more gentle way of fighting that can keep others from being hurt by his too strong physical strength. It's just that Clark looked at the group of soldiers in front of him who fell to the ground and rolled their eyes, and the weaker ones vomited blood, and couldn't help but be a little speechless. Please, you give it a little harder, I haven't used my fists to beat you up, why are you still so weak? I just stomped lightly towards the ground, why did you all fall one by one? Tina also looked at Clark in front of her in surprise, and then she understood that Clark was unwilling to do it with herself just now, not because she looked down on her, but because she really didn't want to hurt her. So many elite naval soldiers in this department were instantly knocked down. I am afraid that if Clark and her were serious, she would not be able to last even a second. It's just that Tina is not such a willing person to admit defeat, not to mention, her feet are still pinched by this guy so painfully, Tina is unwilling. You know, Tina, who has been single for so many years and has always been ice and jade, has never let any member of the opposite sex touch her body, and she directly let Clark hurt her ankle. Although this guy didn't pity Xiang Ziyu at all, and even the other navies heard him in pain, but the thought of being scratched on his foot like this made Tina have an inexplicable anger burning in her heart. Tina kept using her abilities to attack this guy, but sadly found that this man seemed to be like an unknown prophet, and every time he could accurately predict the trajectory of her attack, leaving her helpless. I said, Miss Tina, can you stop fighting, we really have no hatred. Clark could only dodge Tina's attacks non-stop, looking at this beautiful body, and panting from continuous high-intensity attacks. Clark really couldn't bear to fight such a girl. Clark is the most famous gentlemanly Superman on Earth, how can he be rough with a girl? Even if it was the strong adjutant Fiore, who was not human, Clark only chose to smash her Kryptonian mask, causing her to lose her combat effectiveness on Earth due to excessive sensitivity of her senses. As for why Clark didn't simply run away directly in front of Tina, it was because Clark felt that he was right, sat up straight, and did not do anything wrong. If you run away directly, you will really fall into the Yellow River. Okay, as long as you let me kick you hard, I'll guarantee that there will be a write-off between us. Tina crossed her hands at her waist, panting and looking at Clark, who didn't even have a drop of sweat left in front of her, and said breathlessly. Clark looked at Tina in embarrassment. If she really let Tina kick her corner, Tina might be even more hurt. Well, I think, I can treat you to a cup of coffee, how about it? You really still look down on Tina? Tina viciously continued to pounce on Clark. Chapter 18. Clark swore to heaven that he really didn't mean to look down on Colonel Tina, but helplessly, Tina seemed to now believe that Clark was despising herself. Stop, Colonel, stop being vexatious. A solemn and thick, and full of cold temperament, sounded next to it. Although this voice seemed to be relieving Clark, Clark felt that the person next to him seemed to have some bad intentions. Even such a beautiful lady seems to be ignored in his eyes, and actually directly calls people's positions. Such a cold-blooded and ruthless guy must be a pervert. Sure enough, the next moment, although the words spoken by this voice successfully prevented Tina from continuing to attack, it made Tina even more angry with Clark. If he really wants to do it, Colonel Tina, you see you now is already a corpse. Tina looked at this man who was dressed in a red coat, and there were more bright medals hanging on her body than herself, and the identity and status of Yaya were much higher than her, and turned away. It's just that the look in Clark's eyes before leaving is very unfriendly. Clark is very sad. Obviously this guy said something that makes you angry. How can you blame Clark's body? It really makes Clark sad. Sergeant Clark, I have been observing you since you came to the headquarters. Clark was covered in sweat and upside down. This man's words almost scared him, although don't look at his muscles, but he is not gay. This guy actually kept paying attention to him, and said such ambiguous words to him. Clark's figure moved, with a speed close to light, so that he didn't feel the slightest surprise, and moved away from this guy little by little. The red dog was about to continue talking, then rubbed his eyes and looked at Clark strangely, wondering in his heart. The red dog is really strange. How can this guy be motionless? But he feels that the distance between him and himself is getting longer and wider little by little. The red dog rubbed his eyes again, seeing that it was clear that the distance between himself and Clark was only about 10 meters just now, but now he suddenly had a 15-meter gap between him. Is this guy a ghost? How does it feel to float out to the back without moving? Because Clark uses extremely terrifying speed every time, within a very short distance, teleporting like a movement, the red dog's eyes cannot receive Clark's movement figure at all, and can only see that the position where Clark stands before and after every second is changing. This. What he wanted to say, the red dog forgot to continue. He looked at Clark in front of him exaggeratedly, didn't know how to describe it, what was going on. Is it that I am blind, or that the world has changed too much? The red dog rubbed his eyes vigorously again, and Clark was now 20 meters away from him. After feeling that after such a distance, he should no longer be infected by the red-clothed man who was gay, and Clark was relieved to boldly bark at the red dog. You guy who is not a gentleman at all, you observe what I want to do all day long. I will tell you first, I solemnly promise that in my lifetime, I will never engage in foundation. Although the red dog didn't know what it meant, seeing Clark's face facing him as if he had seen the plague, he subconsciously felt that this word was not a good word. He took a step forward and wanted to get closer in Clark's direction. This guy had so much to pay attention to. However, after the red dog took a step, he looked at Clark in amazement and rubbed his eyes for the third time. Heck, the distance between the two of them didn't change in the slightest. A fire rose in the heart of the red dog. He was the representative of one of the highest combat forces of the World Government Navy Headquarters, Admiral Akatsuki the Red Dog. In front of a guy who has just joined the Navy today, he is so humiliated. Moreover, there is nothing he can do with him. The red dog lowered his head, pressed the hat on his head down, no longer spoke, but was silent. and began to stride in the direction of Clark. When Clark saw it, he was shocked. It was over, he was fancied by a pervert. Is this guy already planning to have a philosophical exchange with himself without saying a word? Clark had been trying to maintain a distance of 20 meters between the two, and shouted loudly at the red dog in front of him with his throat. I'll tell you, it's impossible for you to catch up with me in this life, you better die this heart. Although the same sex is true love, but I am a heterosexual cult, you go find someone else, please, let me go. The same is the Navy. Clark saw the medal on the man in front of him and knew that he must have a fairly high position, and he would not see him looking up in the Navy in the future. If he ran away directly today and didn't explain things clearly, what if this guy kept harassing himself in the future? Clark was horrified when he thought of such a scene. Bastard! Unexpectedly, the red dog Sakaski in front of him seemed to be completely enraged, and did not answer, but just began to run quickly, wanting to approach Clark more and more. And Clark, as best he could, bitterly persuaded the red dog. In the Navy, the soldiers all saw a strange scene, and General Sakaski, one of the three major generals that many Navy soldiers looked forward to, was frantically chasing a naval sergeant. According to the grapevine circulated by the naval soldiers at the scene, Senior Admiral Sakaski seems to have unknown hobbies and secrets. Chapter 19. Do you know, General Sakaski, the red dog, it seems that he has been running after a sergeant. You are wrong, I listened to my aunt's third aunt's little niece, you all don't know, in fact, General Sakaski, the red dog, he doesn't like women. A group of Navy soldiers looked at Clark, who was chased around by red dogs in the headquarters, and sympathy flashed in their eyes. Hey, this news is really exciting, no wonder General Sakaski is already this age and has not yet married. One by one, the naval soldiers gasped, and their eyes lit up as they passed this gossip to each other. In the headquarters of the Navy, in addition to training all day long, only the following superiors to the sea to eliminate pirates remained, and their lives were actually quite boring. Now that there is such a gossip that can adjust life, of course, choose to spread it quickly. Without Sakaski, the red dog, the story of him and Clark was already spreading rapidly within the headquarters of the Navy at a terrifying speed. And Sakaski is still trying to catch up with Clark, but Clark is a little impatient, this pervert has been entangled with himself. Stop, stop, you give me a stop. You keep chasing me, endlessly, right? Sakaski saw Clark take the initiative to stop, squinted and stood in place, looking at Clark in front of him. This guy had just been able to maintain high-speed movement for so long under his all-host mechanism, and he had been keeping an almost constant distance from himself. This guy is not simple. Although Sakaski had been kept at such a distance by Clark's near play, he was not too angry. He was very angry today when he saw Clark, who had returned to the Navy headquarters with Garp, actually let the headquarters make such a huge joke. In Sakaski's heart, justice is sacred, absolute, and there is no room for blasphemy. And the most important center of the Navy representing justice in this world, the headquarters of the Navy, Marinfander, should also be a place full of solemn atmosphere. And Clark, the party who made the whole Marinfander boil, only to find out that it was a farce, also entered Sakaski's sight. He doesn't care if you are the one promoted by Vice Admiral Garp or not, and the matter of damaging the face of the Navy, Sakaski will never allow it. However, after seeing Clark's strange speed that can keep a certain distance from himself, Sakaski has a new idea. In his opinion, Clark, who was discovered by Garp, does have good potential. If such a person can use it for himself and recognize his own justice, then the strength of his subordinates can rise a lot. Don't look at the Navy's self-proclaimed righteous organization, but where there are people, there will be fights. Within the Navy, there are now 3 distinct factions based on 3 generals. One is to follow Sakaski's staunch martial arts faction to eradicate all pirates. The 2 outside Clark have not come into contact with the 2 generals now, and they don't know what their personalities are. Are you willing to be like me and become a righteous navy? Sakaski stopped 20 meters from Clark and extended his hand to Clark, inviting him very sincerely. Clark plucked his ears and looked at the guy in front of him boredly. He thought that this man in red was really a gay. It turned out to be trying to recruit himself. Shouldn't they value their great power like those organizations on Earth, and want to turn themselves into their subordinates? I'm not interested, I'm already a navy, and I'm Clark, and I'll only be Clark, and I'm not going to be like everyone else. If it's okay, I hope you don't appear in front of me in the future, bye. Clark turned and left, and suddenly, a burning breath gushed out behind him. Feeling the terrifying heat that made people sweat, Clark directly brushed his red cloak. A large flame hit Clark's cloak. Clark flicked his red cloak again, and a large ball of Mars was dusted to the ground by him. I said, I didn't provoke you. Clark turned around, his eyes reddened and looked at Sakaski behind him. This guy's one hand had turned into magma. It was obvious that the flame that attacked him just now was done by Sakaski. I want to see what is so remarkable about the person who is favored by Lieutenant General Garp. Burst. Before he finished speaking, 2 red rays erupted from Clark's eyes. The scorching rays are 2 red lasers emitted from Clark's eyes, with heat of up to 6,000 degrees and a powerful impact ability. If you are facing a strong enemy, the high temperature is only used to assist the impact force to cause damage to the enemy, but in the face of ordinary enemies, the intense temperature of the light shot at them alone makes them unbearable. So hot! Sakaski's body was instantly pierced by a ray with a huge impact, but the part that was pierced turned into fiery red scalding magma, which seemed to have no effect. However, the high temperature attached to the scorching rays made him a little unbearable. The temperature that his magma can emit is only about 1000 to 2000 degrees, and the scorching rays emitted from Clark's eyes already have 6000 degrees Celsius, comparable to the surface of the sun. Sakaski, the red dog who never thought that he would be burned by high temperature and flames, only felt that his magma body was actually slowly vaporizing under the terrifying temperature. His elemental body was being burned by this terrifying high temperature. Chapter 20. What kind of attack is this? The red dog Sakaski felt the endless terrifying heat coming from the part of his body that was pierced by the hole, and the lava all over his body was slowly vaporizing under this terrifying temperature. This was already more than the maximum temperature he could withstand, and even the body that could elementalize immunity to physical attacks was already on the verge of collapse. Clark looked at Sakaski, who had already seen a huge hole appear on half of his body, and closed his eyes sharply. The red dog Sakaski only then cried out in grief, and then convulsed all over and fell to the ground. The masonry and stones on the ground were turned red and burned by the scorching temperature carried by the red dog. I said it's better not to appear in front of me in the future, okay? To be honest, I don't want to see you again at all. I didn't know what the identity of the guy in front of me was, and I didn't care at all. Clark only felt that the person in front of me was very annoying. He just refused him. He actually attacked himself directly from behind. If it weren't for the very strong defense ability of this set of Kryptonian armor and cape on his body, he would have been disgraced by this sneak attack fireball, and his hairstyle would have been messed up. The hairstyles are all messed up. How to attract the navy inside? These beautiful young ladies like themselves. This guy is taking his life to stop the marriage between himself and the beautiful young lady. It's really hateful. In the future, I will see you once, hit you once, and I will do what I say. Punching Sakaski the red dog viciously, Clark slapped his cloak and slapped down the cooling magma block that fell on it. Sakaski fell to the ground, his whole body still emitting terrifying heat, and he could only watch as he swaggered away from his front with a weak body. This guy, how can it be so powerful? The red dog Sakaski touched the place where his chest was pierced, and the terrifying heat remaining on his palm could still be felt. Sakaski, who has never been afraid of flames and has what he considers to be the most powerful magma fruit among the flame demon fruits, thinks that he has stood on top of all the flame demon fruit abilities. But today, Clark taught him a deep lesson. On top of the magma fruit, there was actually a temperature that could almost burn him. Sakazuki lay on the ground for a long time, before the temperature slowly dropped and returned to normal, and his body began to slowly return to its original state in an elemental state. It's just that the miserable look he just fell to the ground has been seen by many soldiers of the Navy. They were still standing in the distance with dull faces, watching Sakazuki slowly stand up, like a lone wolf, slowly staggering away. I'm not mistaken. The Navy soldier swallowed his saliva with difficulty, then rubbed his eyes vigorously, and finally pinched the thighs of his companions around him fiercely. It wasn't until a scream came out of the mouth of his companion that the soldier continued to say dumbly. Just now, what happened just now, General Sakazuki, defeated by an unknown newcomer. That's right, you read it right, that newcomer just now really defeated the general. A group of soldiers walked together to the place where Sakazuki had just fallen, and through the traces left on the ground, they could feel the terrifying heat that was thrilling enough to completely melt the steel. It's unbelievable. One by one, you look at me, I look at you, and I am amazed. In the corner, a beautiful figure, chest is rising and falling violently, Tina is breathing rapidly, her back is against the wall, her head is still thinking back to the scene just now. Clark only relies on this pair of eyes, making Sakazuki kneel to the ground in pain. It turned out that Clark had really been humble to himself before, otherwise, he would probably be melted away along with the railing created by his fruit ability. Tina touched her heaving chest, and a hot fire suddenly burned in her heart. This man is so powerful, and he is a newcomer who has just joined the Navy. If she can get a good relationship with him, can she also get some secrets about strength? Tina was thrilled. She also wanted to become a heroine, a great naval warrior, instead of being treated as a vase like now, although she had achieved something. Tina quickly made up her mind and left quickly. She was going to inquire about this man. And at the headquarters of the Navy, the news that Sakazuki was defeated by a new man is spreading at a terrifying speed. After all, Sakazuki is the pillar of the Navy, representing the most powerful combat power of the Navy, and being knocked down in the Navy headquarters will undoubtedly attract the strong attention of all navies. Ha ha ha, Sengoku, have you seen it? Even that guy from Sakazuki is not an opponent at all. Garp laughed in the office of the Warring States, and the Warring States questioned the naval soldiers who had witnessed the whole process with their own eyes with a serious face, and after getting detailed information, the Warring States looked at the task that he had prepared before. Hiss. The Warring States tore up the task previously arranged for Clark in 2 strokes, and this news had to make him reconsider his positioning of Clark. Garp, tell me honestly, what kind of power does this Clark have? Didn't I tell you, Sengoku? But I told you, don't underestimate him. We guys of the old times are no longer opponents at all. Sengoku looked at Garp's unreliable appearance, and still couldn't believe that Clark already had the power to surpass himself and Garp. However, next, the arrangement of Clark should be able to fully see Clark's ability. Chapter 21. Stinky boy, wake me up. Early in the morning, when the sky was still dark, in Clark's room, the old and cunning old man Garp quietly slipped in. He looked at Clark, who was lying asleep in his dress, seemingly defenseless against any attack that might come, and a smile appeared in the corner of his eye. This stinky boy has always been not good at respecting him as an old man. Let the old man Garp teach you this stinky boy a good lesson today. Garp slapped his huge slap and scraped towards Clark's face, seeing that his palm was getting closer and closer to Clark's face, and the smile on Garp's face was even bigger. Wow, today the old man also has the opportunity to teach this stinky boy a good lesson. This guy didn't give the old man a little face before, and when he fought with the old man, he didn't know to leave a little face for the old man. Actually beat him into the water in front of so many of his naval soldiers. Old man Garp smiled wickedly and increased his efforts to slap Clark in the face. With a click, the arm like steel, easily like pincers, firmly grasped the arm of Garp who wanted to sneak attack. It hurts, It hurts. Old man Garp shouted loudly, and then his other hand continued to hit Clark in the face, and today he had to hit Clark. However, even in sleep, his senses are countless times more sensitive than ordinary people, and Clark, who can clearly hear the voices of people on the Earth even when flying in the orbit of the Earth's satellites, has long captured Garp after Garp entered the room. Seeing that Garp shamelessly wanted to sneak up on himself while he was asleep, Clark did not break it, let alone wake up directly, pretending that his body reacted naturally to the sneak attack, and kicked Garp in the face before he had time to break free. Boom! There was a loud bang in the naval dormitory in the early morning, and a strong figure broke through the wall from the dormitory and flew out. Stinky boy, you actually did such a heart-wrenching thing to your old husband, you really me off. Garp, who hit a wall and then jumped out of the collapsed masonry, patted the dust on his body like a nobody, and began to shout at Clark, who was standing next to the dormitory with a large hole broken. Clark yawned and pretended to be sleepy-eyed. Ah, it's old man Garp, I was still sleeping just now, I don't know anything, what's wrong, is it that I unconsciously defended and counterattacked in my sleep, who just wanted to attack me? Hearing Clark's words, a cold sweat broke out on Garp's forehead. This shrewd guy is really not cheap for the old man to take advantage of. Ahem, I just wanted to wake you up, forget it, since you have sobered up, let's hurry up and train, smelly boy, as a Navy, you have to train more, the old man personally taught you today. Garp looked at Clark, and his heart became proud again, smelly boy, I must hit you well later. Clark nodded, he was actually quite interested in the naval moves that Garp said. Being able to make the human body burst out dozens of times the power far beyond the boundaries of his own body is a physical technique that is enough to interest Clark. And after the two left, in several dormitories next to Clark's dormitory, a group of naval non-commissioned officers stuck out their heads one by one enviously and looked in the direction the two left. It's really envious, I actually let Lord Garp value it so much. In the training ground of the naval base, there is never a shortage of people who have worked hard in the Navy, and if they want to get ahead in this place where the strong are born, then they must have a great opportunity, such as obtaining a devil fruit and becoming a devil fruit ability. Or it is necessary to train diligently and hard, and the physical masters in the Navy like Garp are also trained from hard training overnight. At this time, in this naval training base that at least colonel-level officers can enter, Garp directly led Clark, who was still a sergeant, into the base with the privilege of his status. Lieutenant General Garp. Garp is a pure faith for these soldiers and officers in the Navy, and when he saw Garp's arrival, many people saluted him and looked at Garp without blinking. The sixth style of the Navy is a physical skill that is not passed down within the Navy, but for these future pillars of the Navy, these elite generals and colonel-level officers in the headquarters are basically required to learn one or two moves. Furthermore, not only do you need to have that kind of qualification, but you also need to have guidance from strong people in this area. Because this training is comparable to hellish pain and torture, it requires terrifying willpower beyond ordinary people to be able to train successfully. You guys continue to train, I'm here to take this stinky boy to see it today. Garp said hello and smiled and took Clark deeper in, although the warring states are not completely convinced of Clark's situation now, but Garp has already made up his mind to let this guy contact the Navy 6 as soon as possible, so that he has more sense of belonging to the Navy. Clark boy, the 6 styles are extremely powerful physical techniques, and your physical strength has long reached the standard, so I won't train you the most basic, now, I will show you the basic moves of the Navy 6 styles. Chapter 22. The 6 was used once by Garp next to each other in front of Clark, but then Garp patted Clark on the shoulder. Your body is already as hard as steel, you don't need to practice iron at all, well, the flying ability of usse has no effect on you, and Arashi can give you more of the same means of long-range attacks.